If that black girl breaks that car, she's going straight to jail. That was the first thing a bystander said, loud, clear, and cold, as a young woman ran toward the sleek Rolls-Royce Phantom, parked awkwardly in the middle of Michigan Avenue, Chicago. It was a scene straight out of a movie. People gathered. Phones were up. No one moved. Inside the car was Matthew Langford, a billionaire CEO, slumped over the steering wheel, clutching his chest. His face had gone pale, his lips turning blue. But no one helped. Not one person tried to open the door. Not a single hand reached out. They watched him die. Across the street, a woman in a diner uniform slammed on her brakes. Her name was Kira Johnson, 26. African American. Waitress. Exhausted after a double shift. Her cheap bike was squeaking, her apron still stained from spilled coffee. But when her eyes met the glass of that luxury car, and saw the man inside gasping, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw a human being dying alone. Kira sprinted toward the car. "Someone help me," she shouted. No one did. "Call 911. Phones were still rolling, but for the wrong reason. "She's gonna scratch that car," one woman sneered. "She just wants to rob it," another muttered. In that moment, surrounded by silence and judgment, Kira grabbed her bike, raised it over her head, and smashed it through the rear window. Glass shattered. People screamed. But still, no one helped. This is not just a rescue story. This is a black story. It's about courage that gets overlooked, about how racism tries to silence heroes before they even speak. It's about Kira, her strength, her scars, and the moment the world forced her to choose between doing nothing and doing the impossible. And she chose right. So don't just watch this video. Feel it. Because if you've ever wondered what you'd do in a moment like this is your chance to find out. Stay with us. Before the world called her a hero, Kira Johnson was just a waitress. She worked 6 days a week at a high-end bistro in downtown Chicago, serving overpriced steaks to businessmen in suits who never looked her in the eye. To them, she was just the girl with the tray, someone they could wave off, snap at, or ignore completely. And they did. She was used to it. Every morning, Kira tied her curls into a bun, slipped on her worn-out sneakers, and rode her second-hand bike 12 blocks to work. She had no car, no savings, and barely any time to sleep. But she had something most people didn't: resilience. The kind of quiet strength that comes from surviving things no one claps for. At 26, she was raising her little brother Malik, while taking care of her mother, who'd been battling chronic illness for years. Her father, gone since she was 10. Most nights, she didn't eat dinner until everyone else was fed. Most mornings, she started her shift before sunrise. But her biggest challenge wasn't poverty. It was perception. See, when you're a young black woman in a white-collar world, people don't just see you. They measure you. They label you. They expect you to be angry, loud, unqualified, or invisible. And Kira knew it. She'd been called aggressive for speaking up. She'd been called ungrateful for asking for fair tips. Once, a customer spilled wine and blamed her, demanding she apologize on her knees. Her manager stood there. Said nothing. She never forgot that. But here's the thing about Kira: she never let that treatment define her. She didn't need to prove her worth to anyone who couldn't see it. Her dignity wasn't up for negotiation. She read self-help books on her lunch breaks, took free online courses at night, dreamed of owning her own cafe someday, a place where every single customer, no matter who they were, would feel seen. People thought they knew her story. Poor girl, hard life, dead-end job. But no one knew her fire. And when the moment came, that split second when everyone froze, Kira didn't wait for permission. She didn't ask if it was her place. She saw someone in danger, and she moved. That's what heroes do. And sometimes, they wear aprons. Private jets. A Manhattan penthouse. A $300 million tech empire built from the ground up. He was the kind of man who got invited to closed-door meetings with senators, whose tweets could shift stock markets, whose name alone carried weight on Wall Street. On paper, he was success personified. But behind the glass towers and billion-dollar deals, Matthew Langford was alone. At 53, he had no close friends, no partner, no children. His relationships were contracts. His conversations were transactions. Even his birthday parties felt like business meetings, with champagne instead of coffee. He used to believe that being feared was better than being loved. It worked. Employees didn't speak unless spoken to. His boardroom ran like a war room, efficient, silent, ruthless. His motto was simple: feelings are liabilities. Winners don't feel, they calculate. And he lived by it. Matthew's rise wasn't luck. It was pain, weaponized. He grew up in a broken home in Pittsburgh, raised by a father who believed weakness was a sin. By 17, Matthew had taught himself to code, sold his first app, and dropped out of college the same week. He told himself he'd never be poor again. And he wasn't. But while his net worth climbed, something else inside him hollowed out. The higher he rose, the fewer people he trusted. The more power he had, the more he feared losing control. He called it focus. Others called it cold. Just hours before the heart attack, Matthew had been in a heated board meeting, cutting 10,000 jobs to boost quarterly profits. He didn't blink. He didn't flinch. Just signed the papers and walked out. To him, numbers mattered more than names. Until the pain hit. Until he found himself gasping for air in a $500,000 car, trapped, choking, invisible. As if all the money in the world couldn't buy him a single helping hand. That's when it struck him. In the end, you don't die with your wealth. You die with your choices. And no one was choosing to save him. Not the executives he made rich. Not the investors he kept happy. Not the strangers he passed every day, thinking they didn't matter. In that moment, with his heart failing and his vision fading, Matthew Langford, the man who thought he needed no one, realized the truth. He needed someone. And that someone was already running toward him. The moment Kira Johnson saw the man slumped inside the luxury car, she didn't hesitate. She dropped her bike on the sidewalk and sprinted through traffic. Her heart was pounding, not from fear, but urgency. She had no idea who he was. Didn't know he was a billionaire. Didn't care. All she knew was that someone was dying. And no one was doing a damn thing about it. As she reached the car, she knocked hard on the window. "So, can you hear me?" No response. She tried the handle. Locked. She looked around, dozens of people watching, filming, whispering. "Call 911, she yelled. A man shrugged. "Already did." A woman muttered, "She's probably trying to steal something." Another voice, sharp and mocking, "If she breaks that window, I'm getting it on video." Kira's hands trembled, not from doubt, but anger. The kind that builds after years of being dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. She could feel it rising, not just for her, but for every black woman who ever had to prove her worth in a world that made her invisible. This was that moment. Kira stepped back, grabbed her bike by the frame, and swung it full force into the passenger side window. The glass cracked but didn't shatter. Gasps echoed around her. She didn't stop. She swung again. And again. On the third hit, the window exploded into pieces. She reached in, unlocked the door, and climbed inside. The man's skin was clammy, his pulse weak. She checked his breathing, shallow and irregular. Kira didn't have a medical degree, but she had taken a free first aid class at the community center 2 years earlier. She remembered one thing: act fast. Stay calm. Keep the heart pumping. She tilted his head, cleared his airway, and began chest compressions. 1, 2, 3. "Don't stop," she whispered. "You stay with me, all right? You don't get to die today." Outside, people kept filming. Not one offered help. Not one asked if she was okay. But Kira wasn't there for attention. She wasn't trying to go viral. She was trying to save a life, even if the world around her was trying to save its pride. Because in that moment, surrounded by stares and silence, Kira Johnson did what no one else had the courage to do. She chose action over optics. And someone's heartbeat, barely hanging on, was the proof that she was right. Kira fumbled for her phone with one hand while keeping the other on the billionaire's chest, pressing hard and fast. Her fingers shook, but her voice was steady as she hit 911. Emergency services. What's your emergency? There's a man having a heart attack inside a Rolls-Royce on Michigan and Wacker. I broke the window. I'm performing CPR. We need help, fast. The line went quiet for a second too long. Then came the question she didn't expect. Ma'am, can you identify yourself? Kira blinked. What? Just send someone. He's not breathing right. I need your name, ma'am. And explain again how you got into the vehicle. Her throat tightened. I told you, I broke the window. He was dying. Nobody else was doing anything. Please, just. Is this your vehicle? No. It's his. I don't know him. Another pause. Officers are en route. Stay on the line. It wasn't the words that chilled her. It was the tone. Clinical. Suspicious. As if she were the problem, not the dying man under her hands. And outside the car, things weren't any better. A small group had formed, whispering behind their phones. One man live-streamed the whole thing, saying, "Yeah, this black chick just smashed a rich dude's car. She's pretending to help him or something. Crazy world, huh?" Kira gritted her teeth. She kept pressing, counting. 28, 29, 30. Breathe. Start again. She could feel the sweat dripping down her back, mixing with the fear she refused to show. This man, whoever he was, still had a chance. And she wasn't going to let bias, doubt, or protocol take that away from him. On the phone, the dispatcher spoke again. Units are 5 minutes out. Are you armed, ma'am? Kira almost laughed. Not out of humor, but disbelief. I'm armed with CPR and a bike. Is that a problem? No answer. She hung up. She didn't have time for bureaucracy. The only thing that mattered was keeping that man alive. So she leaned back in, found the rhythm again, and kept pressing. Because in a world where people hesitate to help, question your intentions, and film your desperation for views, Kira Johnson chose to keep fighting. Not because it was easy, but because someone had to. The sound of sirens pierced through the crowd like a blade, shrill, sharp, and cold. Red and blue lights reflected off the high-rises, dancing across the cracked window of the Rolls-Royce. Relief flickered in Kira's chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, help had arrived. The ambulance screeched to a halt. 2 paramedics rushed toward the car, pulling open the shattered door Kira had left ajar. One of them took over compressions without a word. The other yanked open the back door and motioned her out. She stepped out slowly, hands raised, face streaked with sweat. But before she could speak, 2 police officers flanked her, guns holstered but hands firm. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle," one said sharply. "I'm the one who called 911, she said, still catching her breath. "I performed CPR, he was dying." "We'll verify that," the officer replied flatly. Kira stood still, stunned. "You think I hurt him? You broke into a car, ma'am. That's all we know for now." It didn't matter that she was still shaking from compressions, that her clothes were soaked through, that she'd been inside that car alone, saving a man's life while everyone else stood back. None of that seemed to matter. Another officer walked up holding her bike by the bent handlebars. "This yours?" "Yes." He raised an eyebrow. "Used it to break the window?" "Yes." "Because he was dying." They nodded, but not in thanks, in suspicion. As if she were some kind of puzzle they couldn't quite solve. Meanwhile, inside the car, the paramedics stabilized the man, now known to them as Matthew Langford, CEO of Langford Capital. The name caused a stir, a shift. Suddenly, Everything became more careful, more guarded. Reporters arrived. Questions flew. But no one asked for Kira's name. No one asked what she'd done. She stood there, arms crossed, her bike beside her like a broken shield. Watching a man she saved be taken away. Watching her role in it be erased in real time. One officer turned to her. "We'll need you to stay for questioning." She nodded once. "I'm not going anywhere." Because Kira didn't just break glass that day, she broke silence. And even if the system tried to shove her out of the frame, she wasn't about to disappear. Not now. Not ever. By nightfall, the story had gone national. News alerts flashed across screens. Billionaire CEO suffers heart attack on Michigan Avenue. Aerial shots of the shattered Rolls-Royce filled every major network. Cable anchors debated his health. Talk shows speculated about his company's future. Paparazzi camped outside the hospital. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. Everyone, except the girl who saved him. Kira watched it all unfold from her one-bedroom apartment, still wearing the same apron she had on that morning. Her phone buzzed constantly, but not with praise, just confusion. Friends texted. "Was that you? Did you really break into a car?" Then came the viral clip. It was 20 seconds long, shaky footage from a bystander, taken just before the ambulance arrived. In the video, Kira was mid-swing, her bike raised, smashing the car window. The audio caught someone yelling, "She's trying to break in." The caption, "Woman destroys Rolls-Royce in broad daylight." No context. No CPR. No emergency. Just a split second of chaos framed as crime. And it spread like wildfire. By morning, the restaurant where she worked had suspended her, citing public relations concerns. They released a statement calling her actions unbecoming of their staff, even as customers threatened to boycott. The media never called her a hero. They didn't even call her by name. They called her a woman, a passerby, a suspect. Some outlets blurred her face. Others didn't. And no one bothered to ask why she did it. In online comment sections, the judgment was swift and cruel. If it was her dad in that car, maybe I'd understand. She probably thought there was money inside. Funny how these things always go viral when they want attention. Kira stayed off social media. She didn't owe anyone an explanation. But it stung, watching the truth get twisted until it no longer resembled what actually happened. Until her act of courage became a spectacle. She hadn't asked for recognition. But she hadn't expected betrayal either. What hurt most wasn't the lies. It was how quickly people believed them. Because in a country built on stories, who gets to tell the story still depends on who's holding the camera. And for now, no one was aiming it at Kira Johnson. The hospital room was silent, too clean, too still. Matthew Langford opened his eyes slowly. The ceiling was unfamiliar, white and sterile. Monitors beeped beside him, tubes in his arm, an oxygen line beneath his nose. His chest ached. Breathing felt like lifting bricks. But he was alive. Barely. A nurse leaned over. "Mr. Langford? You're awake. You're stable. You had a heart attack. You're very lucky." Lucky. He'd built his entire life on control, on predicting markets, mitigating risk, staying 10 steps ahead. And now, he'd woken up with no memory of the last few minutes before blacking out. Except one thing. A face. Not fully. Not clearly. But a flash of warm brown eyes, wide, focused, desperate. The kind of eyes that didn't look at his wealth, his title, or his failures. Just him. "Who was with me?" he croaked. His voice was dry, like gravel. The nurse smiled. "Paramedics got to you just in time." "No," he said firmly. "Before that, there was someone else." The nurse paused. "We're not sure. There was a report of a bystander, a woman. But there's no official name." Matthew frowned. That wasn't good enough. She She broke the window, he muttered, pieces of the memory surfacing like wreckage after a storm. She was wearing an apron. She pulled me out. Did CPR. The nurse nodded slowly. They said someone performed first aid. Probably saved your life. He stared at the ceiling again, letting it sink in. A stranger had saved him. Not a doctor. Not his driver. Not one of the bodyguards he paid 6 figures a year. A stranger. And in his mind, the noise of the crowd, the sound of cracking glass, it all faded away. What remained was that final image as his vision blurred, a black woman leaning over him, fighting for his life while the world did nothing. He knew those eyes. He'd seen them before, in the faces of people he passed by every day and never looked at twice. Now, they haunted him. He pressed the call button. "I want security footage," he said when the doctor walked in. "Street cams, traffic cams. I want to know who she is." The doctor raised an eyebrow. "Why?" Matthew looked him straight in the eye. "Because I owe her everything. And I'm not letting this world forget her the way it always forgets people like her." It took Matthew Langford less than 48 hours to track her down. Security footage from the city's traffic cameras showed her face. It wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. The bike, the apron, the swing. He had his team run a search, not as a press inquiry, but quietly, discreetly. He didn't want this turned into a headline. Not yet. Her name came back fast. Kira Johnson, 26, waitress at a downtown restaurant, currently suspended. When he saw her employee photo, he froze. Those were the eyes. The next morning, Kira heard a knock at her apartment door. She opened it to find a sharply dressed man in his 50s, flanked by 2 nervous assistants. He wasn't surrounded by cameras. No news crew. No flashing lights. Just him. "Miss Johnson?" he asked softly. She nodded, cautiously. "I'm Matthew Langford. You saved my life." Kira blinked. Of all the things she expected to hear that week, that wasn't on the list. "I didn't do it for recognition," she said flatly. "I just didn't want you to die." He smiled, but it wasn't the CEO's smile. Not the polished, powerful grin she'd seen on magazines and business blogs. This one was different. Human. Humbled. "I know. That's exactly why it mattered." She stepped aside, reluctantly letting him in. They sat across from each other in her small kitchen, surrounded by peeling cabinets and grocery lists on the fridge. For a moment, he just looked around. Not judging. Just seeing. "You probably think I came here to give you a check," he finally said. "But I didn't." Kira folded her arms. "Then why?" "Because I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who would have walked right past that car. And you didn't. You saw me. And you acted." He leaned forward. "And I realized. I don't want to be the kind of man who forgets people like you. Who benefits from your courage but erases your name." Kira was quiet. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not her bosses. Not her teachers. Certainly not a billionaire. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "No," he replied. "But maybe I owe the world a little more because of what you did." They sat in silence for a moment. 2 people from opposite worlds, finding a strange, sudden common ground. And in that small kitchen on the south side of Chicago, a story the world had twisted finally began to heal. With the truth. The story couldn't stay quiet for long. Just days after their private meeting, a blurry photo of Matthew Langford leaving Kira's apartment hit the internet. Within hours, media outlets scrambled for context. Speculation spread like wildfire. Mysterious woman involved in CEO's rescue identified. Matthew Langford spotted visiting waitress in South Side apartment. What is the real connection between the billionaire and the waitress? And with it came the comments. Some hailed Kira as a hero. Finally. Others weren't so kind. She saved his life and now she's cashing in. She knew who he was the whole time. Smart move. This is just another hustle. You can't convince me otherwise. Even some prominent voices on TV questioned her motives. She didn't come forward on her own, one pundit said. Why now? Is this about redemption for him, or fame for her? Another asked. Kira didn't respond. She didn't post. She didn't clap back. But the pressure mounted. Her job refused to reinstate her, despite public petitions. Strangers showed up to her neighborhood, snapping photos, asking questions. She even received threats from people angry that someone like her was getting attention, as if being a black woman who saved a life somehow made her suspicious. Matthew, on the other hand, faced backlash of a different kind. Investors questioned his judgment. Some board members warned him not to be distracted by personal causes. Others accused him of turning his recovery into a publicity stunt. One headline read, "Langford's midlife crisis, from layoffs to social justice." But for every critic, there was someone who saw the truth. A single mother in Detroit wrote, "My daughter watches Kira's story like it's a Marvel movie. That's what real courage looks like." A retired firefighter emailed, "She did what I've seen trained responders hesitate to do." Still, the noise was loud. And the louder it got, the harder it became to hear the truth. That a woman acted when no one else did. That a man, powerful as he was, owed his life not to money, but to mercy. And that in a country where stories get twisted and heroes get questioned, doing the right thing isn't always celebrated. Sometimes, it's attacked. But Kira didn't do it for celebration. She did it because she refused to be the kind of person who stood by, even when the world was watching. Something shifted in Matthew Langford after that heart attack. It wasn't just his diet or his schedule. It wasn't the pause in business meetings or the decrease in red-eye flights. It was deeper than that. For the first time in his adult life, he stopped asking, "How much is it worth?" and started asking, "Who is it worth it to?" He realized he'd spent decades building a legacy of profit, but not of purpose. And it was Kira who held up that mirror. So, just 3 weeks after their meeting, Matthew called a press conference. Not from his penthouse office. Not from the trading floor. But from the steps of a community center in South Side Chicago. He stood behind the podium, the same man, but not the same mind. "I owe my life to a woman who had every reason to walk away," he began. "She didn't. She acted when others froze. And she didn't ask for attention. She never once asked me for anything. So I'm giving her something she never expected, a seat at the table." He turned to his left. Kira Johnson, in a simple navy dress and sneakers, stepped up beside him. She didn't smile for the cameras. She wasn't here for a show. But the world was finally seeing her. Matthew continued, "Today, I'm announcing the launch of the Real Worth Foundation, a national nonprofit focused on investing in overlooked heroes, underfunded communities, and everyday people who do extraordinary things." He paused. "And Kira isn't just the reason this foundation exists. She's my partner in building it." The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters yelled questions. But Kira just leaned into the mic and said, "I didn't save him because he was rich. I didn't even know his name. I saved him because it was the right thing to do. And if this foundation can help others do the right thing, even when it's hard, then I'm all in." The Real Worth Foundation launched with $50 million in seed funding. But more than the money, it launched with a message that courage isn't reserved for superheroes or CEOs, it lives in everyday people like Kira. And for once, the headlines told the truth. Not just about a rescue, but about redemption. And a second chance, not just for Matthew Langford, but for the world he helped shape. In the weeks that followed, the media moved on. The headlines faded. The camera crews packed up. A new scandal, a new viral moment, a new distraction took center stage. That's how the world works. Attention is currency, and it moves fast. But some stories don't end when the cameras turn off. Kira Johnson went back to her neighborhood. She still took the bus. She still brought home groceries for her mom. But now, she also stood in rooms filled with CEOs, lawmakers, and community leaders. Not as a guest. As a voice. A co-founder. A decision maker. And Matthew Langford? He changed. Not into someone new, but into someone real. He started showing up where he'd never been seen before. Community centers. Public schools. Not with press releases or photo ops, but with questions. With humility. Together, they launched local initiatives to train young people in CPR. Built safe spaces for at-risk youth. Funded scholarships for students who had been overlooked just like Kira once was. But the lesson in this story isn't just about what they built. It's about what you choose to do when no one else is watching. It's about the moments that define us, not in front of a crowd, not on a stage, but in the quiet seconds where we see something wrong and have to decide if we'll step forward or look away. Kira didn't have a cape. She had a bike, a beat-up apron, and a decision to make. And in a city full of power, privilege, and people too busy to care, she chose courage. So maybe the real question isn't whether you would have done the same. Maybe the question is, will you? Will you be the one who speaks up? The one who moves when others freeze? The one who doesn't wait to be invited to change the world? Because the world doesn't change when we watch heroes. It changes when we become them. So if this story moved you, even a little, don't let it stop here. Share it. Talk about it. Ask yourself, what would I have done? And the next time life puts you at that crossroads, remember, you don't need permission to do what's right. You just need the courage to do it.